What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. So another day, another Piers Morgan debate. I got one coming in that y'all are gonna like this one because we've got some insanity. When we're dealing with leftists, we all know the type of insane, deranged, just divorced from reality garbage nonsense that these people spew out just doesn't make any sense for the most part. And I love this. A lot of people, they come on Piers Morgan, a lot of these lefties, they come on and they're like, I can't say two freaking words without being cut off. And it's funny because yeah, when you start lying about stuff and you start exaggerating the truth and blah, 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 you're putting out all this nonsense, of course you're going to get cut off. Of course we're going to debunk your nonsense. Of course we're going to try to shut you down, give you the facts, give you reality, give you what's really going on so you can get your story straight, so we can try to figure out exactly why do you think like this? Why do you think some alternate version of reality that doesn't exist, that doesn't make any sense, and there's no logic to it whatsoever? Like, I don't understand these people, but we've got some insanity coming in. But before we get into the clip, I need you guys to do me a big favor and smash that like button for me if you don't mind. I would greatly appreciate that. And if you could, subscribe to this channel. That would also be greatly appreciated. I'm trying to expand and grow the channel. So if y'all could, that would really be appreciated. If y'all could smash that subscribe button, share this video anywhere and everywhere you can, that would also be greatly appreciated. But without any further ado, here's some insanity.
Ali, briefly, your view of the pardon situation.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think the GOP has positioned itself for a long time as the pro-police, anti-crime party. And then they have made a million excuses for what happened on January 6th and whitewashed and gaslighted all of America, essentially, about that day. And anyone who was watching that day knows how violent it was and how scary it was to watch people break into the Capitol building. So, you know, now that they're okay with these people back on the streets, facing little to no consequences for their actions, I think it's disgraceful. And if these insurrectionists were, again, like he said, BLM, I think they would not have even considered pardons for them. So it's suffice to say that I don't think that the GOP today has steady moral. Yeah, many of them did, and I think it's suffice to say that they have steady morals when it comes to crime. But we already knew that because they endorsed.
Kamala bailed them out. Kamala raised money to bail out the people who were burning down Minneapolis. The tweet is still up. And if Trump had raised money to bail out people before they even got charged with anything, the comparison to the damage done by BLM and the January 6th is seismic, right? There were tens of billions of dollars in damages during the months-long BLM protest. Fauci, who just got a pardon, people couldn't even say goodbye to their grandmas and grandpas in hospitals. They had to record videos and nurses were holding it for them. Meanwhile, Fauci comes out and says, well, hundreds of thousands of people can go march in the streets because this is more important than wearing a mask and being concerned about COVID. This was when a lot of people started looking around and saying, this is fundamentally broken.
I mean, Clay he's totally right here. Like, come on, what reality do you live in? They were bailing these rioters out of jail. They were setting up all these GoFundMes and Give, Send, Go and all this, these charities, I guess, if you want to even call it that, to get these rioters out of prison, right, out of jail, trying to get them out of trouble. Right now, they didn't get a blanket pardon from Joe Biden, but so what, right? And this is another thing. We'll get into that later, but as for this is just divorced from reality. Outright. The reason that we make so many excuses, right? You don't hear a lot of people on the right actually say, oh, January 6th was a good day. No, most everybody, at least everybody I hear, they say, yes, it was a bad day. However, it's been misconstrued like crazy. These people on the left are insane. It's just what they're saying just doesn't line up with reality at all. Right? Their alignment on what actually happened is way off. Because everybody that got caught up on January 6th, they weren't violent insurrectionists, right? There was no coup of the government, and this is something the left tries to proclaim all the time, that, oh, they tried to coup the government, it was a failed insurrection. Now, definitionally insurrection, sure, that's fighting with the government. But when you hear insurrection, you think they're trying to overthrow the government. It doesn't necessarily mean fighting with the government, but the definition of insurrection is just fighting with an authority figure, essentially. So, yeah, there's an insurrection every day. So That's why we say, well, what about the summer of love, right? Like, we got to play whataboutism on this because the clear double standard. They were bonding these people out of jail. They were trying to get these people off the hook, the BLM rioters that rioted all over the place. They were trying to say, oh, but this was just peaceful protests. They were outright trying to deny the existence of billions of dollars in damage, like he said, right? There was no, May 29th committee from Congress for the insurrection at the White House. There was none of that. There was no, congressional committees for the BLM riots. None of that stuff. We didn't have the mainstream news going constantly hard into the paint over here talking about the summer of love. As a matter of fact, the mainstream news was trying to tone it down. They were trying to play it down as if, to say, like, there's that famous clip of the guy saying, yeah, it's mostly peaceful but slightly fiery protest, right? With a federal courthouse burning in the background, right? Then you got, was it Chris Cuomo on CNN saying, who says protests have to be peaceful? As a matter of fact, the Constitution does. The permits for protests do. They can't be violent. It's insane what they tried to, the double standard played here. That's the problem. It's not that we're trying to say January 6th wasn't bad. But if you go look up, right, a lot of these people still think that a lot of the violent people that Donald Trump pardoned should have not gotten a pardon. It's absurd. It's outright absurd. They say they should still be sitting in prison. If you go look up, right, I got this clip right here. I got it. The minimum sentence, the average sentence, is 2 years in prison. Now, a lot of these people that were fighting with cops, they've been sitting in prison since January 6th, 2021. That's 4 years in prison. I think they've served their time. Now, I've said it several times. I think that a lot of the violent people, the ones that you can prove committed violence, that were actually beating on cops, like the guy that tased that cop, people spraying bear spray and all that other garbage, right? Which is ridiculous, but, it is what it is. It happened. Those people should have got a commuted sentence, not a pardon. Not a blanket pardon, because once again, we are the party of law and order we're supposed to be, right? Party of logic. That's what logic dictates. That's what the law dictates. That these people, they need to be held accountable, for crying out loud, and just giving them a blanket pardon, that's not accountability. I will push back on Trump for that. But let's keep going. We've got a whole bunch of other topics, and I've been ranting for way too long.
Is there no way of American political discourse, led by the Democrats, I have to say, is there no way of just moving past Nazis and Hitler? Can we not just all agree that it's a ridiculous and fatuous thing to keep playing out as a narrative and doesn't work? Hence Trump's big win, despite everyone on the left calling him a Nazi. Thoughts?
Yeah, I think, we'll start with one area of agreement, actually, that I have with you and Clay, which is different for me lately, which is I agree that it is, I don't think, a good strategy. The fact that you guys are talking about it shows that it's not a great strategy. If they were doing some very effective messaging, I kind of think that Clay would probably be ignoring it. So I agree. I think Elon's kind of a weird guy that was doing kind of an awkward gesture. I think we can all admit it was kind of awkward, but he does a lot of kind of awkward things. If I was the Democrats, here's what I'd be focused on when it comes to Elon Musk. This man is the largest government contractor, the largest recipient of government money. He is the largest donor to Donald Trump's campaign. He is the owner of a communications platform, and he will have an office inside the White House. I mean, there was mass outrage on the right about the fact that some people in the Biden administration were emailing Facebook and Twitter people recommending the content be taken down. I don't think that was very smart. I think that was bad policy by the Biden administration. But it was kind of mid-level bureaucratic stuff. I don't think it was really limiting people's free speech all that much. Now, I don't understand how you could be upset about that, but then be okay about the owner of a communications platform having an office in the White House, having a security clearance, and being able to put the thumb on the scale of his algorithm to promote what is happening out of this administration. We can all agree, if you just go on the Twitter or the X For You page, it's like Elon Musk Propaganda Central. So now we have an officer of the American government controlling a communications platform. I would think that people who are concerned about speech and free and open dialogue in this country would be astonished by that. In addition to the potential corruption, if you're an Elon competitor, what must you be thinking right now if you're a competitor of SpaceX or competitor of Tesla, which receive billions of dollars for the government, and the owner of that company is now going to have control over a government efficiency program where he gets to choose where money goes. The corruption here is astonishing. It'd be like if George Soros had an office off of the West Wing when Joe Biden was president. It's insane. So if I was the Democrats, I'd be focused on that level of corruption and not his awkward hand gesture.
Well, there isn't just a disagreement right here, okay? That's utterly divorced from reality once again, and I love to use that because that's exactly what it is. That doesn't align with what is actually going on. Now, I do love the fact that he agreed that, yeah, that whole thing, that was just, oops. It was an awkward moment. He does some awkward stuff. He's kind of an awkward guy. But to downplay, as a matter of fact, the federal government being weaponized against its own people in such a manner that they have backdoor access to social media platforms and were coercing social media platforms to delete posts and ban people outright, shutting down political speech, for crying out loud, using the impetus of, oh, well, it's mis and disinformation. Oh, we're fighting Russian propaganda over here. No. You can't do that. That violates the First Amendment. And then I can't stand the fact that, like Mark Zuckerberg coming out and saying, well, it was ultimately our choice. Yeah, but you also said you were being threatened. They said there was going to be consequences if you do not do this. You were threatened. Not trying to take culpability away from social media platforms. I honestly think they should be shut down for that, just outright. Transfer ownership, get these people out of there. Because that, looking into it, it's really pissed me off. It really has, because that's like the ultimate violation of the First Amendment, because it's a end runaround violation of the First Amendment. You got somebody up front taking the charge who can't be sued for it, for crying out loud, taking the blame. Reducing the culpability from the government, acting like it didn't happen, and for him to downplay that and try to equivocate that with what Elon Musk is doing is absurd. It's just outright absurd. Tim Miller is one of the most just politically weaponized leftists in media right now. Like, this dude is he just says insanity after insanity after insanity. That's all he says, right? He comes off as being rational and kind of in the middle, right? Like agreeing that, oh, well, that's just kind of bad. Violating the First Amendment blatantly on a widespread scale. Like, it sounds reasonable at first until you actually look into what happened and see just how deep that goes. And then to equivocate that with Elon Musk is absurd. He's acting like Elon Musk is going to be running the government. He's going to be actually doing Congress's job and appropriating these funds to over here and appropriating these funds to over here. It's an advisory board. That's all it is. Tells Donald Trump, hey, look, you got a lot of waste in this department. I don't think we should be spending money on this over here. That's it. He doesn't appropriate anything at all. Now, he will have to, and his staff, they will have to go through, a lot of the financial statements and all that other jazz to see where the money is going, who's spending what on what, how much is being spent on this, why are you spending this money on this, could you get it for cheaper, right? It's an efficiency board, for crying out loud. And the government currently is very, very, very inefficient. I just don't see the equivocation there. Sure, he may have some interests in some of this stuff, right? Which, hey, genuine concern there. However, it's not like he's directing this money where to go, oh, we need to send more money to SpaceX and Tesla. That's not what's going on here. That he doesn't have any power at all. It's just an advisory position, and I can't stand this talking point. They're acting like it's some oligarchy or some crap like that when it is nothing of the sort, right? It's just an advisory board. There's plenty of those. Why are we not griping about the power that those advisory boards have? Right? You think Joe Biden didn't have millionaire advisors? I'm sorry. What world do you live in where that actually happened? It's definitely not this one. But let's keep going. We've got a lot else to deal with here.
Washington National Cathedral yesterday, where Bishop Marianne Edgar Buddy, who was officiating, decided to suddenly turn it into a political rally. Let's take a listen.
In the name of our God, I ask you to have mercy upon the people in our country who are scared now. There are gay, lesbian, and transgender children in Democratic, Republican, and independent families, some who fear for their lives.
Well, Trump has responded. He took a while. His first response was didn't really say very much when he was asked by the media. And then he said the so-called bishop who spoke at the National Prayer Service on Tuesday morning was a radical left hardline Trump hater. She brought her church into the world of politics in a very ungracious way. She was nasty in tone and not compelling or smart. She failed to mention the large number of illegal migrants that came into our country and killed people. Many were deposited from jails and mental institutions. It's a giant crime wave that's taking part in the USA. Apart from her inappropriate statements, the service was a very boring and uninspiring one. She's not very good at her job. She and her church owe the public an apology. It seemed to me the biggest problem the Democrats had in the last 4 years, culminating in the terrible beating they got in the election, was that they kept scolding the American people. Constant scolding. Culminating in Barack Obama scolding other black Americans. If you don't vote for Kamala because she's black, effectively, then you're betraying black people. It's this constant, self-righteous, high moral scolding. And they took a terrible drubbing in the election. Trump's back with a bang. And rather than be clever and move on and evolve as a party and work out how to find the next Bill Clinton or someone like it who can actually take this head on and be a proper opponent, it seemed to me they've learned nothing. You say you're a Democrat now. Did you enjoy what that bishop was saying? Or did you not think like I did, wow, have you not got the memo that people are fed up with this stuff?
Okay, let me start off by saying the slippery slope argument is not a real argument of, oh, people are going to start identifying as horses. That is reminiscent of the gay marriage era. That is what you said. The gay marriage era where people said that people were going to start marrying their pets. It's ridiculous.
It's a logical. Listen, it's not, again, just to not strawman me. I'm making a logical analogy. Yeah. I'm not equating the two things. And I'm not saying that transgenderism will lead to people identifying as a horse. The point is to attack the logic. What's wrong with me saying I'm a horse? You now have to respect my identity as a horse. What's wrong with it is that objective reality exists.
Not a horse. Yeah,
exactly.
The point is, the point is, Ali, limitless self-identity means that anyone, anywhere can identify as whatever they like. And the reason it matters is that this goes right to the heart of the trans debate, say, in women's sport. I want trans people to have the same rights to equality and fairness as everybody else on this panel, including me, right? What I don't want is women's rights being trashed in the process. And when you allow people who are born biological male with all the advantage in terms of power and strength and speed and so on, when you allow them to simply put their hand up and say, I'm now a woman and I want to compete against women in women's sport, and then they start performing immeasurably better comparative to how they were performing against other biological men, then you realize the problem. And this is why the Democrats, one of the reasons they lost. That last ad that Trump did, Kamala's for they, them, Donald Trump's for you. One of the most effective ads in modern times. There's a reason, because most people actually went, yeah, he's got a point. We're fed up with this crap. So did you, honestly, Ali, when you heard that bishop, did you think, great, really needed to be said? Or did you slightly wince and went, we haven't got the right memo here?
No, I really respected what she said, actually, and I think she has a lot more guts than a lot of politicians do. Not many people get to sit and talk to the vice president, the president, and their families face to face like that. And so she could have easily just, put her head down and complied. And I think they needed to hear what she said, whether they wanted to or not. They clearly didn't. But I truly believe it was important for them to hear that. And it shows just how truly cruel, callous, and anti-Christian that these people actually are. And another point is that trans people have existed since the beginning of time. They will exist. They'll always exist. The Republican parties current position is that there are only two genders and trans people don't exist, or it's made up. And that's just not true. There are a lot of transgender kids that genuinely are scared. If you haven't met one, just say that. But I have met one, and I've met many, and I have transgender friends, and they are scared because there's a target on their back by this incoming administration. And I understand the Republican Party's concern about men and women's sports. That makes it sound very scary and perhaps dangerous, but I think there is a common sense solution to having inclusivity and not isolating transgender kids from their friends or sports that they want to play in high school that aren't even at the competitive level, because we simply think that they just don't belong. And there is a common
Why
sense
can't they
solution
just compete against their biological sex like everybody else has to?
Honestly, the Catholic Church has fallen. Honestly, as Christians, it's not incumbent upon us to judge others for the sins they commit. But when you have the Catholic Church actively promulgating LGBTQ issues like this, it gets to the point where it's like, okay, so what is your message here, right? It's not a sin to be gay. To be straight up, it's not. It's a sin to engage in homosexual activities. There is a difference between those two, right? Now, it's also a sin to engage in heterosexual activities outside of marriage. Imagine that. Why don't we go after those? We should go after both if we're going to go after one. Let's not be hypocritical here. But when the church is actively just propagating all this message out there that it's okay, we need to forgive. We do need to forgive. And it's not incumbent upon us to be the judges of this. But when these people are trying to force us into their cult, force us into their ideology, we do need to push back. Because like Dave Smith said, we have objective reality. And it's a shame that this is what the argument has become. We're arguing, you got one side over here arguing objective reality versus some delusional fantasy. Like, how come that is the political discussion these days when we're actively trying to say this doesn't line up with reality, and they're like, no, blah, 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 yada, blah. No. Well, when has the political discussion shifted from policy differences to you don't agree with reality over here? Like, when did this happen? I mean, I know it's happened, but when did this take place? Was it a pivot point? Was there a shift? Or just was it slowly over time? It seems like it's been slowly over time. They've been delving further and further and further into delusional fantasy and away from objective reality. And I can't stand this argument, right? But, that whole trans thing, I always want to know, and I always ask this question, and I never get an answer to it. Maybe somebody can answer it. Maybe somebody's watching this video and can answer this. What are these trans rights that they don't have that other people do have? Like, do they not have rights, or do they want more rights? Because you can't have both, right? As far as human beings go, trans people, everybody, we all have equal rights, at least in the United States. So, if we're advocating for more trans rights, why do they get more rights than everybody else? That seems unfair. That seems discriminatory as well. Why do they get more rights than everybody else? And if they don't have the rights, once again, what are those rights that they don't have that, say, somebody like me does have? I just want to know this, right? And it's not the right to force your ideology down somebody else's throat, because that seems to be the argument. That seems to be what they're saying, is they want to be recognized as this, when it is fantasy. It's delusional fantasy. It's not objective reality. You can't force people into your delusion. That is not how reality works. Reality, it's a sledgehammer, for crying out loud, that you can't stop. It's like the unstoppable force. There's nothing to stop it. There's not an unmovable object that can stop an unstoppable force, because neither one of those exists. But reality is like an unstoppable force. You can't stop reality. You can't just say, oh, well, yeah, I claim to be this one day, and that's what it is. That's not how reality works. Your biological sex just because it doesn't align in your head with what you think you are, doesn't mean that that's what you are. You can identify in any way you want to, but you can't force other people to see it that way. That's the point here. And getting these people to understand that, I don't understand why they can't understand that. Like, hey, ask nicely. Maybe we will, maybe we won't. If it's somebody that refuses to bend to your gender ideology, just don't associate yourself. You can't force people into your delusional dream world. That's just not how reality works. Sorry to break it to anybody that thinks that way. But, you know, I just can't stand this idea that we're having to argue. We're having, you know, disputes, discourse over objective reality and fantasy delusional dream worlds over here. And these people actively argue for the fantasy delusion. Doesn't make any sense to me. How can you logically deduce that a fantasy is more real than reality is? That doesn't make any sense. You can't reconcile those two at all. So this will never be a reconcilable argument if you keep ignoring reality. But I think I've rambled on for long enough on this one, y'all. I want y'all to let me know what y'all think about all this down in the comment section, because I'd love to hear from you guys. I don't get enough comments from you guys. Y'all need to start. Y'all need to get in there. Tell me what's wrong with this. Tell me where I'm going wrong, if I'm wrong at all. Because if you guys don't comment, tell me I'm wrong, then I think I'm right, and I'm going to keep going in that direction. So if I am wrong, let me know. And if I'm right, let me know. Because I need to know, to be honest with you. But enough of all that. Y'all let me know what y'all think. That's all I got on this one. Y'all don't forget to hit that like button. Try to have a good day. Stay legitical. I'll see y'all on the next one. Peace.